Okay, guys. All right, guys. Zach here, Strong Life Podcast. I got my buddy Josh Bryant going to be rolling through Jailhouse Strong. I've got a lot of his books constantly sitting on my desk. They get me fired up. And we're going to have a great live podcast. I see Josh is here. We're going to crush it. Okay, here we go. Yes, my brother Josh Bryant.
How's it going, man?
Jailhouse Strong in the house. Josh, the world is on lockdown, but for you and I, it's another day in the office.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Another day at the office. So, of course, we're going to talk about the style of training you and I love to use, this kind of ability to train anywhere, anytime. We don't care if we have the gym or not. And, let's kick it off. I've always got your books sitting on my desk, especially as I am doing a lot of programming for the athletes at the high school I work at. A lot of kids, even today, do not have dumbbells. They have nothing at home. They don't have a pull-up bar. And so I've always said to them, you can't go wrong with sprints and push-ups if you're doing those two things. So let's talk about how are you adjusting for your online athletes, because I know you do a lot of online coaching.
Sure.
A variety of people, from powerlifters to people just chasing general fitness. So what's going on with the adjustments you've had to make? What advice do you give them? How are they doing with finding equipment with all the price gouging going on? Stuff like that.
I didn't think that was a thing. But people are apparently making it a strategy to sell their used crap and they're going to buy new stuff after. I never even thought of that. It's like, I mean, damn.
What's going to happen also is once the gyms reopen, a lot of these people there's a lot of people that really don't have the discipline that you and I or kind of our followers have to train alone.
Sure.
So they will sell this equipment. Everybody's going to be selling equipment, and then they won't be able to price gouge. And I had a friend, he posted a photo on Instagram, like people were selling like this stuff, like these Clorox wipes for I don't know, $500. And he said, there's a special place in hell for those people.
Seriously.
So what do you...
Like the guy who's doing 17,000 things of hand sanitizer in Tennessee?
Yes. Oh, dude, it's making me...
And then Amazon kicked him off. Now he's got 17,000 things of hand sanitizer.
So I laugh, but I'm like, man, do these people not have a heart? And it's interesting what's going on. So let's get into the training, and then let's get into the mindset as well.
Sure.
So what's some of the changes you've been needing to make?
Well, it's sort of interesting you say the mindset, because majority of my clients are going to be of the right mindset. It's just saying, okay, gym's closed. What do we do from here? It's not like, where you might get someone else contact you, say, gym's closed. Like they don't want a solution. So thankfully I'm in a position where most people are actually looking for a solution. Right. Because we're all, we're all dealt these cards. It's a hand we got to play. Yep. So, I mean, it was like, when we initially talked about doing this, and I remember I said, like, hey, dude, I'm going to be like literally on like a different kind of lockdown here for a little bit because I need to adjust these workouts. And it was like, a labor intensive process. It wasn't just sending out something that says, all right, do 12 push-ups, and send it to a bunch of people. It was like each person need to adjust it and this and that. So, I mean, it can be challenging when you're, somebody's, I'm a powerlifter going for, an 800-pound squat, and I got a 44-pound kettlebell, 3 bands, one's about to rip, and a pull-up bar that might rip off the door handle, and a tree I can barely grip to do pull-ups, and it's challenging. But I do think there'll be some positives for people, not so much outside. I mean, because a lot of these guys, interesting is it's going to be a good way to develop their work capacity. Sort of a forced off season, if you will. Yeah. And especially people that are bigger, they're going to maintain their strength pretty well. Sure. Just by doing this body weight volume. So, I mean, if you weigh 148 pounds and you bench press 450 and you don't have anything besides yourself, it's probably going to be tough to maintain a little strength. But people that are over 300 pounds, I mean, there's a lot of positives here. I mean, even for people that are not affiliated with us, just seeing all these people that are having to do body weight squats, that are having to do body weight movements and different movement patterns they never do. Yeah. This is going to help them. And it's even going to be, a wake up call for some people at like, at gym. I mean, I go to like a 24-hour fitness to do some accessory work. And I'm like, you know what? The hell with this place. I don't want to go back there after this.
Right.
I'd rather sacrifice a little bit of quality on some of the accessory work and just do it my way and not,
You had a nice, I think one of our first Instagram lives, it's on YouTube. They could, you did a little tour of your garage gym. You had a little cable crossover unit. You had a dip bar. You had a heavy bag. You had the wheelbarrow.
We can go out there again a little bit.
Sled. Yeah, we should see that. And so are the majority of people training with you online? Are they powerlifters? But you have a lot of probably fighters, law enforcement as well.
A lot of tactical athletes, the military and police,
right.
Powerlifters, and then a lot of people that are bodybuilding too, or some kind of muscle hypertrophy enthusiasts. I guess there's going to be a degree of crossover to each of them to a point.
Sure.
Like so. The people that are, like say an Ed Brown or somebody that's a top level bodybuilder, in the off season, we'll do like sled or even preparing, we do like sled drags and things like that. So he's getting more like functional training, if you will, out of it. Or somebody that's more of just a pure tactical athlete, they might be, because of the roots in bodybuilding and stuff, they might be getting like, okay, you're doing all these weighted push-ups, this and that, but then you're, hit some cable flies after type of thing. So
yeah,
it's what's useful, not what's going to be like, an ideologue for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I actually pulled up some old photos. I like Googled my name and then tire sled. And the first DVD I created in 2003 was with the tree logs, the trees we cut down in the backyard. I got the sleds by going to the tire yard. So people selling stuff, I tell them, go to the tire yard, get the front end of a tractor tire. That's now your sled. Get another tire. Now you got a tire for tire flips. You got something to do step ups on. You got
and let me add to that: the people in the tire yard are going to be thankful because they have to pay to dispose of that. So you want a 200-pound tire, 800-pound tire, 1,200-pound tire, free. They're going to thank you when you take it.
Yeah, and then you bring it to your house. It's like so the people. And what's interesting is people are selling those things on Facebook Marketplace, and it's like, come on, bro, don't sell that when you know it's free. So let's get into some of the training. Like Ed Brown is a very big guy.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're advising him to do? Does he have equipment at his house?
Not a lot of equipment at his house. He's been able to get rid of a garage. Sometimes we got like some barbells and stuff, so it hasn't been too bad. But like, for instance, with people like him, for instance, or anybody in that situation, most of them at least have bands.
Yeah.
So we do like band resistant push-ups and stuff. It's, for the pressing type of movements.
I did that today. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to make it harder, put your feet up on put your feet up on your bed or bench, whatever, and make it band resistant. I mean,
what's also tricky and interesting is you and I both have videos of us training athletes at playgrounds. Even the parks are shut down. You're not even allowed to like go to the playground equipment. But today I did workout with sleds, kettlebells, and push-ups, but I did the Juarez Valley push-up, but with a band. So it was like put the band behind my back, 10 push-ups, 10 pull-aparts, walk to the other side of my turf, 9, went down to 1, and right before all this happened, Josh, before the lockdown, I said to myself, man, my body's feeling pretty jacked up. I think I'm going to go on a 30-day body weight challenge to kind of detox my body, and then even though the gyms are shut down, I try not even to utilize my own gym too much because I like when things are kind of stacked against me. I love the obstacle. To me, it's an opportunity. And I have my son following your two boys on Instagram. Yeah. And I told my son, I said, Ethan, you could never go wrong with two things, sprints and push-ups. So the other day he was watching TV. He's been doing this every day. He does 100 push-ups. He does 10 at a clip. And what I told him was, Ethan, you got to do 20 push-ups a day. And it was like to see, would he just stop at 20, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's such a mindset thing. So let's talk about, people that maybe don't necessarily follow you that much. Maybe they follow a little bit. Maybe they're just totally new to us and they don't really have the mindset that we said earlier of like, hey man, like all in all the time. You also have the mindset manual that you have on all your books are on Amazon.
Yep.
What are some mindset tips or strategies? Because I am shocked that even some of the people I train were not doing anything that, for like 2 weeks. And I was like, you didn't do push-ups? You didn't even like sprint? They're like, no. So let's talk about why some people are being, paralyzed by this. How do we get them out of it?
Well, I think the way we get them out of it's just get them doing something at first. I think I think you need to look at this also in this time. It's not just physical training, but more like psychological training.
Yes.
It's like, for instance, I first learned this when my grandma died when I was 16. I was really close to my grandma. So the coping mechanism I used is I definitely was like, quote unquote, overtraining by what I was doing, but it made me feel so much better to train that I did that. So I think mentally, basically right now, if you need to use this as a coping mechanism, do that. So like, even if it's like physiological, not optimal what you're doing, that's fine. Just start training.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first step. So something's going to be better than nothing no matter what. I mean, and then like use this for, depending on what your training goals are, how can you use this to optimize that? Well, if you're a powerlifter and you've been just going heavy, doubles, triples, singles, all that kind of stuff, and you haven't done any kind of work capacity work, train with your body weight, give your joints a break, build your work capacity right now. So what's my freshman football coach used to say this, what's the next best thing you can do? Well, if you're a powerlifter and you don't do any of this kind of stuff, build your work capacity. If you're, a bodybuilder that's just been bound up on machines and hasn't done anything, work some movement in there. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff we can do, and people are so limited. Like, you don't have a pull-up bar. You could do pull-ups on a door. I mean, unless you live in like an apartment with no trees anywhere with rope. I mean, you've got a tree in your backyard. You might have a branch strong enough to do some pull-ups.
Or you grab a beach towel. I was doing this when I first started training people out of my parents' backyard. The branch was so high, but we had the beach towel. So I said, sling that beach towel around. Now we're going to do grip-intensive pull-ups. But you got other things too, like the powerlifters who are so connected to heavy lifting, then go to an empty parking lot, put your car in neutral, shut off the engine, and push it. And you're going to get a lot of leg drive, and your abs and shoulders and upper back and triceps get a real intense isometric workout because your arms are locked out. And you could push forward. You could put your back up against the truck or a Jeep and drive it, which is more like doing leg extension and knee extension work. So you have strength work that could be done by pushing cars and trucks around. And here's another one I like. I'm not sure if they're gouging over there, but you could go to a scrap yard, and usually the going rate tends to be 50 cents a pound. So I've picked up Olympic plates, dumbbells, and you could even pick up, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. I'm not a car guy, but somebody was selling something that looked like they weighed down the bed of a truck, and they were almost looked like these farmer walk implements, and it said Ford on them. They were 50, 75, or 100 pounds each. And so there are ways to you could go to a scrap yard, or you could go on these, Craigslist and whatnot, and maybe go into the auto parts section and see what can you take. And an interview that was done about 2 years ago with Nate Carr, who was I believe he took bronze in the Olympics. Yeah. His boys wrestle as well, but he said, he had 8, 10 siblings. So he goes, I went to the junkyard and I picked up a car axle. It's like, I brought it into the basement, put it on top of milk crates, and I would do presses with it, and I would lift it up and squat with it. So there are many ways, right, to get it done. And I know in your garage, you've got a sandbag, right? A couple sandbags.
I'll start walking out there.
Sure.
So, we have, I got sandbags, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think you're dead on what you're saying. The other thing is, I don't know the rules on these lockdowns and stuff everywhere, because I know they're a little different in each state.
Yes.
But what about parks? Can you guys go to parks?
I don't know if you could go out. I mean, you could find an empty field, playground / parks. My kids told me that there were some kids playing basketball, and the cops drove by, but it might be different in every town. When I first was training athletes, I would go to the crappy parks in the town that was not the best town, because I knew nobody was going to care. oh, there's some guys working out. No big deal. You know, they're used to seeing you know, kids doing other things. And so here we go. We're going to take a look at the Jailhouse Strong Garage
It's
gym.
it's a little messy. We got a lot of things going on, but here we go.
Yes.
So let me flip it. Is that okay? Cool.
Yep.
So
Nice.
got this tire for tire throws, whatever you're flipping.
Where'd you get the tire from, Josh? You went to a junkyard or auto?
Honestly, there's a Lifetime Fitness over here.
They were flipping that?
No, they had it in the dumpster. So I drive by there because there's a dumpster. I guess because of lawsuits, they throw away stuff there all the time. So I just drive by there, see what they got in the dumpster. And I've gone dumpster diving for a lot of my stuff. So this tire is dumpster diving. That box over there is dumpster diving.
The plyo box?
The plyo box is dumpster. They're going to throw that away.
From where?
Yeah.
Fitness, what'd you say?
A fitness gym, Lifetime Fitness.
Lifetime Fitness, wow.
You know, this is one of those 260-pound, you know, whatever, kicking
Stick.
bags.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. And then got the dumpster diving box right here. So I got this.
Looks brand new.
Yep. I got that right there. That
80,
so I got the 80-pound med ball.
Great.
20-pound med ball.
Beautiful.
Got this, whatever the hell this thing is.
They sell them on Amazon, those Titan bags.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. I love them too, man.
This guest just joined us out here. We got what's up, Nate? We got
Prowler sandbags.
We got the sandbags. So this is one's a little over 300, I think, or 300. That blue one.
Would you load it up with play sand?
No, it's sand. So it said it's 300 pounds. Could fill the capacity, but it's overflowing a little bit.
Where's the bag from, Josh? Is that a Iron Mine
that blue one?
Rogue?
Iron Mines. Okay, yeah. So 352 pounds or whatever, 160 kilos right there.
Whoa.
Got the Farmer's Walks under there.
See it? Yep.
The Sled from Elite FTS.
Yep, of course.
Have these things, so you stack plates on these and do all sorts of carries.
I have them. Yeah, yep. Loading pins.
The Spud straps.
Good.
The belt squat.
Oh wow! What belt squat you've had that for a bit, right?
Yeah, I bought it from somebody. I don't even know what it was.
I remember. Yep, I saw an older video of you utilizing that. That's great.
This is a frame carry right here on top. See, it's got a lot of stuff here, so that's a frame carry on top of that.
Great, a lot of carries.
Then this is a chain. This was just from Home Depot. You put the loading pins on that.
I think you have a how-to video on your YouTube
I got a how-to
channel.
of the yoke.
Okay, great.
Yep. So then I got these blocks right here.
What are they for?
They're for, like, you know, any kind of deadlifting, elevated or whatever.
Yes.
And then if I want to deadlift out here, I could just put them down here, then put a deficit deadlift platform to make it the floor level. I got the Husafelt stone loadable right there.
Nice.
Hurdles back here.
Yep.
Isometric platform.
Okay.
Bench press.
Yeah.
Plate.
You don't
obviously
bench,
lots of plates.
Do you bench too much?
It's just such a nice one. I don't want to give it up.
I got
this stretching deal. Have
the Chuck Norris one.
The Chuck Norris one. Have this plate loaded row.
That's new. I haven't seen that one for a bit.
Another sandbag. That's just mainly to stop the punching bag right there. So if it hits it, it will
pop back up.
Yep. Dip platform, speed bags, another speed bag for the kids.
Great.
All the boxing stuff in there. Tie pads.
Very good.
More ruck stuff.
Yep.
Various neck harnesses.
Yeah.
Belts.
Man.
Another box. Got this cables. And
where'd you get the cable machine? Brand new?
Craigslist.
Of course. Yeah.
Another bag. So I got quite a bit in here.
You do? That garage I think it's got more than the last time you did
definitely.
You did this tour. What about, like, you've probably been training people who just went to the gym and had nothing in their garage. So what do their workouts look like?
Well, it depends because what their capabilities are and all that kind of stuff. So, like, somebody that hasn't done much of this that's heavy is going to have a different workout than somebody's light that's like a bodyweight phenom, you know what I mean? So
let's talk about maybe somebody somewhere in the middle, somebody who's maybe like a law enforcement but was kind of new to training with you.
Okay, so like right now during these conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, it's going to be things like, like if they usually go out bands or something, we do some kind of resisted squats or something with bands. You know, we can do like some of the movements like leg curls or Romanian deadlifts with bands.
Yep.
And then kind of keep it a little more, I may say strength based to a degree. And then we'll do other workout, you know, another day, say we're doing like a 4-day split. We might go, or even a 5, because it's easier to get a lot more days in because the body weight training doesn't have to warm up as long. You have to go anywhere. So we'll go like 5 days of like a primary upper body day, more strength based, a primary upper body day, more endurance based, a primary leg day, you know, or lower body day, more strength, same endurance, and then like a mixed kind of day where we're doing a little bit of everything. So that's been a good setup right there. And been adjusting it, you know, case by case, because some people, you know, may say like, hey, you know what, I got all the time in the world to train, so we're going to do all sorts of different stuff. Other people might be like, no, dude, like we're clamping. I mean, because not everybody's out of work right now. A lot of people are the opposite. Have less time to work out.
Especially your clientele. So law enforcement, tactical, they're kind of they are working a lot. I've got a lot of friends that are cops. They're doing some unique things with their schedules, but they're also making them, not making them, you know, they're doing security at the hospitals and things of that nature. So what about Big Tom? Big Tom's probably still training on that farm.
Yeah,
right?
so he's got the farm, he's got weight. So a lot of people already have the stuff they need. So then there's not really a whole lot of adjustments like, hey, you know what? We were going to do cable flies. Now we're going to use bands instead. It's not a very big deal, you know? So kind of the way I do it is like, I'll go, hang on a second, I'll close this. I'll do it more of like an approach of like, I'm taking it where I like go from the kind of plan from the bottom up, you know, where basically what do you have and versus like, I want you to do this. And they'll say, hey, first question is, what do you have access to right now? Then I'll look at what level the person's at and go from there rather than say, okay, we need to do like, you know, weighted vest push-ups, and the places don't have weighted vests to order one right now and all that kind of stuff. So I'm basically saying, what do you have? Look at what level what their goals are, what level they're at, plan accordingly for each person.
Yeah, equipment orders are taking much longer than normal. So my buddy's a strength coach for the Falcons, and so he ordered equipment for his house, and he put the players in touch with, you know, the contact that works with pro teams. And, you know, my own members, you know, parents are like, oh, no, this kettlebell is not going to be shipped for 14 days. And I said, that's fine. We're not at a loss without kettlebells. So what I've been doing is we have like a software that runs the gym workouts, billing, all this stuff. So I post a daily workout Monday through Saturday. You got a body weight workout. And we have kids who have some stuff at home. They got trap bars. Some of them have straight bars. Some of them have a bench with like the standard bar, so they could bench, they could overhead press, but they can't really unrack it to do a Zercher squat or a back squat. So they're going to do dumbbell goblet squats. They're going to do a lot of squat jumps, frog jumps, heavy dumbbell lunges, which are great. So there's ways to, I guess what's been really good for us is like you and I have been in so many of these situations where we didn't have the best setup. And I even look back to, I trained this football crew out of my first, not my parents' garage, but my first garage. And one kid in the group was like 6'4". The shortest kid was 5'4". So we never back squatted. I had one squat rack. So it was like, okay, it's going to be a pain in the butt for the 6'4" guy to unrack the bar or the 5. So we just did Zercher squats, and then we did heavy lunges and heavy deadlifts with the trap bar. So we'd lunge with dumbbells or sandbags. And I remember those guys, it didn't negatively impact them that they weren't back squatting with me. Now, they did back squat at school. Did they do a full squat? Who knows? But we got the full range work through lunges and sandbags. And so I think people are really overthinking things. And sometimes I'll just go, you know, I have I always keep your books real close to me, gives me good ideas, but like your interval training book, and then here's the first one, who I actually let a coach I give them books, and one of them didn't give it back, and I don't know who, so I bought another one. But this book is one of my favorites because you've got there's a lot of circuits in here, that wrestler stuff, sit through, power stand up, sprawl, and what's crazy is I'm sure you do too. You ever watch those like lockup movies or
Yeah, I
TV
have before.
shows. There was a show, and they were showing like the women that were locked up, and one girl, now that, as you know, girls wrestling has taken off.
Yeah.
This one girl was a former high school wrestler, and so she was like training. She was like running the stairs, doing push-ups, doing dips, and it was interesting. She took her wrestling training and was basically utilizing it while in the, in the prison. And so I guess it was like they were on lockdown, but then each person got like a 30-minute time to go out into whatever that common area was, but it was like one person at a time. She utilized that time to like sprint the stairs and do calisthenics work to, to keep her mind from going crazy. I think she was about to get locked up for a long time. And that training was her therapy, right? Here's another book I have.
I saw something like that yesterday. I saw at the track, the tracks here are open.
Yep.
Like, as long as people have done a good job here of keeping the distance. But I saw this older dude, probably like 60 years old yesterday. And it was kind of funny. He was, you couldn't tell if he's able to move that good because he kind of like walked kind of slow in there and stuff. He did a dynamic warm up, and I'm like, watch this guy's pretty, once he got going, he looked pretty good. And like, he was like down his football. It was like he's having flashbacks or something down.
Yes.
Like you're saying, his football stance and stuff. And like doing like various agility drills. He looked great for like a 30-year-old. So I'm like thinking like, man, like, there's definitely something to that with like in prison and those kind of places where people like, and society tells a lot of people as they age, they basically, gotta, trade all this, good training they've had in for, like pink dumbbells and stuff. But like a lot of people I see out there that are actually in the best shape, and particularly in prisons and stuff, are people that are reverting back to like the wrestling and football training, things like that. Not just like, oh yeah, no, now I'm 40 years old, so I'm gonna, what was it said? Like Jim Windler said, trading their barbell for panties or something along those lines.
It makes you age. I see a lot of, I'm 44, and I see a lot of guys my age, maybe even a little younger, but they look 10 years older from poor eating habits and no exercise. And I remember when I did a visit, I wrote like a 2-part article for T-Nation way back, 2006 maybe. I went to the prison. It's called.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? So the one guy who was.
With the guy who was heavy, like partial deadlifts or something, right?
So there was the one guy, the first guy I interviewed was like the biggest guy in the prison. Yep. And then the next group of guys I interviewed, they were part of those guys that do the Scared Straight program. You see that? When they like.
Oh, yeah. Is that still a thing?
I think it is. Those guys
they used to show to us in high school and stuff.
Yeah, I think they bring I'm not sure, but they're called the lifers because they're locked up for life. They got locked up when they were teenagers, and those guys were part of the prison had a boxing team, a powerlifting team. So the one guy told me, he's like, every morning 5 sets of 50 push-ups, and I drink my green tea here. And I still remember when he was talking about green tea. Like one of the other guys was like, he's like, hey man, can I get some of that green tea? He's like, okay. He's like, you see how we snuck that in there? Like they were funny, and they really were funny, and they were cool guys. And they took me to the old gymnasium, which was an old basketball court.
Yeah.
And it was where they had the boxing ring, but the boxing ring was no longer there. They had the pig iron. The weights were all welded together. So, the barbells were fixed. And you had to get like you had to have like very good behavior to get invited to work out upstairs. And they said when they were part of the boxing team, he said the boxing coach didn't like them to lift weights. So what he would do is he'd put the heavy bag on them, and they would run like down the stairs and then up the stairs and around. They would do this for like everything was like 5 minutes, right? Or 3, what's a boxing round? 3 minutes?
3 minutes for pros, and amateurs can be down to as low as a minute.
Okay, and then MMA is 5 minutes. So he may have said it was 5 minutes. I'd have to look back, but everything they did was a circuit. Then it was like jumping rope for time. Then it was doing very light barbell or dumbbell curls for time. Then it was doing the speed bag for time. Then come in, work with your coach on the mitts for time. And it was a circuit. So now these guys, like their thing was always every day, hundreds of reps of body weight. But the one guy, similar to what you wrote about in the interval training book, was kind of like a pre-chow workout. This guy did his 5 sets of 50 push-ups every day. The power lifter, he did his one body part a day, Monday through Friday. Saturday, every, all calisthenics, 100 reps per exercise. So squats, sit-ups, push-ups. I think he did like triceps off of the the cell bars.
Yeah.
At my gym, I have stall bars. I actually showed the idea to Bill Henninger over at Rogue. I showed him the wooden stall bars. Asked him years ago if he could make it, and they made them out of steel. So I do a lot of the extensions. You ever see that movie Pulling John, the arm wrestler? No. Oh, you didn't? Oh, you would love it. It's the documentary. It's probably on YouTube. It's the documentary of all these arm wrestlers trying to beat, John Brezink. And John Brezink didn't lift weights. He would go to like the playground and do like one arm. He'd kind of like pull his body, one arm rowing, one arm pulling.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. The other guys were doing a lot of weightlifting. They were huge. The Russian was big. There was a guy, Travis, who's somewhere down in Virginia, big. They were, he was doing like one arm concentration curls with like a 110-pound dumbbell. But Brezink was like in his 40s, undefeated, I think, for like 20-something years. And he was just doing body weight work.
One movement I've done with some arm wrestlers that worked pretty good. Not that I've worked with a lot of arm wrestlers, but one that did work really well was, have you done, I'm talking about the sled work where we'd hold the sled like at anywhere 90, 45 degrees in different positions and have guys pull it that way. But isometric, you just hold that position while you walk with heavy weight.
Isometric
it's
walks.
Crazy, yeah.
With a fat grip? You put a fat grip on it or no?
You can. So yeah, exactly. So I've done it with like people doing like that really want to have like specialize in their arms. We'll do like different type of training each day and really focus on their arms, like for like a short kind of stint with those kind of isometric sled walks, dude. It's insane. I just thought of that right now when you're talking about arm wrestling.
I'm gonna give it a shot at my gym. My dad made me, the Rolling Thunder handles.
Of course.
So he made those when he had his shop where he had the guys make it. I'm going to attach them to the sleds and do that. And it reminded me of, Joe DeFranco. His dad was a big arm wrestler. His dad was a state trooper, big arm wrestler. And his dad told me that he set up something in his garage where he took the springs for the garage door. Yeah. He attached them to like he just took them off the garage door and he used them, and he would arm wrestle the springs. I think Joe probably has a photo of it. And then the story goes that they wanted his dad to take a role in Over the Top. Yeah. But they said like he'd have to lose to Sly Stallone. And he said no. Nah. So he didn't do it. I always say like Joe's dad is the original underground strength coach because he had like a little hole in the wall gym. And it was like one squat rack, one bench. He would do like the crossbody hammer curls to really work his grip. And, the troopers, I don't know what it's like in Texas, and you grew up in California, but in New Jersey, when I was a kid, they were huge. Like, it was like they were 6'2" minimum. They just, you could see them coming a mile away. You were scared of them. And then I did see one shorter guy in my younger years. He was shorter, but I remember seeing him, like, going out of his patrol car on a highway, and he's like, his chest was as far out in front of him as he was wide. So I was like, oh, they must have made a special, a special situation for this guy because he may not have been tall, but he was built like a tank. And now the troopers are all shapes and sizes, but I think the troopers of the 80s and early 90s were just monsters.
No, definitely, because it was a different era. Because I don't know if the physical standards were that hard then. I think it was more of like a rites of passage type of thing. Where now, like the guys I work with like are in really good shape. They, strength wise, speed wise, conditioning wise, all this stuff. But I mean, if you want to if with that kind of job, obviously the motivation should be it's like if literally a 1/10 of a second difference in your 40 times, say, or 20 time, whatever, you could actually save your life because get away from something, whatever. So it's that big of a motivation. But like some of the standards, are really low. And that's why I commend these guys is because they're taking the bull by the balls themselves and they're actually like getting better and exceeding, because like one of them was like, police department around here's gang unit was their thing was 300 yards in 90 seconds.
Well,
I mean,
that's horrible.
That's horrible. Like,
Right.
I mean, if you know, gang members generally are young and stuff, so I mean,
Yes.
they might not have good endurance because they, drink all day and get high,
Right.
but I'm sure they can run a lot faster than that. So
That's
it's
right.
like, you know what I mean? So, but like the point is, the guy that told me about this, is like the opposite. I mean, I don't know what he could do, do that particular one in, but like, I mean, he could do, tempo runs all day long in 15 seconds, like of 100 yards and do 20 of them, so he probably could run that in, 35 seconds or something if he had to, 36 seconds.
Yeah.
So
Army has, Army has, revamped their.
That's really good. The 2020 standards
is very good. Callie Hinsman, she's one of the crew from Power Athletes. She said the troopers used to have a height minimum, and Callie is actually, she's a police officer.
Okay.
I think she's in Seattle area, but like she, to me, should be she's the standard. Women, it's women in law enforcement is something really interesting because last summer, the town I live in is a vacation spot, Memorial Day through Labor Day. It's a beach town. So the house
where do you live in New Jersey?
It's called Manasquan. It's a small beach town. Small beach town, big, rental, big party area. And years ago, well, let me tell this story first. A girl was going to train with us last year, and I think she's like 5 foot, maybe 5'1", and she never showed up. And yet she told me, she's like, I'm actually nervous when I have to go into a house and there's like 40, 50, 60 people and I'm 5 feet tall. And I said, you know what you're training need? You need training so you could be confident. That's what you need. You need confidence. And she never showed up. And so a couple of years back in my town, there was a former high school wrestler from a very tough school. It's like one of the best schools in the country. And he must have been strung out on drugs. And so he was like running down. We don't have a boardwalk. We have like a paved sidewalk area. It's beachfront homes, then a paved sidewalk area, then the beach. And he was like running, and he like dove through one of those like golf carts that the security people are in, which is usually like some older people or some young kids.
Yeah.
He like dove through it, threw them out, went on like a crazy ride with it, was like going nuts, ran through multiple houses, punching people, beating people up. And it took, it took double digits, more than 10 guys, policemen, to stop him. And I said to myself, man, if you're in law enforcement and you're not taking jujitsu or you don't have a wrestling background, and you're not training, I just worry because there's, even in these safe towns like mine, there's always somebody who's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
You got to be training for life. I see no other way around it. So let's close out with some sample, workouts that you've been going through. I'll share some of mine to give people some ideas on what they could do during this quarantine time.
Yeah. So I think, question for you though is, you think it's, if there's at a park, I saw this really nice log that someone cut down a tree there and it's just sitting there. Is that okay to take?
Dude, I think the same thing.
It's beautiful. It's been sitting there.
Yes. I feel like you have to take it. And when I walk my dog, there's a guy that he must have cut down a massive tree. Older guy, looks like he could be in his 50s. And I saw him like trying to move the logs, and I just wanted to lift him. So I was like, sir, if you need a hand, just let me know. Like, to me, it's an excuse to like deadlift and like clean things. And I would take the log. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to say? Can you get arrested? This man stole a tree log. I mean,
well, apparently the cops are standing down right now anyways, if it's theft. So.
Oh, right. They don't want to be like going near people. Dude, I would take it. And we had the first tree that we cut down. It was an old cherry tree that was dying. And when it was freshly cut, it was so heavy. It was brutal. I remember doing Zercher carries first time ever. And I was like, I remember saying to myself, oh, that's, quote unquote core training. I mean, it was brutal. So Callie Hinsman says that Kenny Loggins would steal the tree log.
The singer?
The singer.
I didn't know he worked out that hard.
That's right. Didn't he pass away? I think so. Callie's with the Power Athlete crew. I got to introduce you to them but they're in Austin. I don't know how far that is from you. They would do like a couple hours.
If you left the right time of day, probably it can be like depends on Austin. To me, like when I have to make a decision to go down there, if it's on the north side of Austin, it's a much easier way to say yes than the south side. Driving through there's a pain in the ass with the traffic.
I think John is like it's called Bee Cave. Bee Cave. So it's like outside of the city.
Okay.
It's still part of Austin. But yeah, I would take that log. I would do it without a doubt, man. So somebody's asking here, how long is Grease the Groove intended for? And is it okay to do that long term? And, you know, I do it. If I do Grease the Groove way back, I just kept a barbell in my garage, Josh, and it was 275 or 325. And usually I would deadlift like 3 reps in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the evening, couple reps. But after like 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, all right, can't be killing this Grease the Groove. And pull-ups also could beat up your lats, make your lats too tight. So I would say it depends how often you would grease the groove on an exercise. You know, like you're saying, the workout you're prescribing for people, it depends, right?
Yeah, and the grease the groove also, it's not like it's all you're essentially saying is mastering the motor pattern by doing it often. So like, I mean, how long can you do that for? Well, it would also depend on what the movement is, and you know, do you have pre-existing conditions, how old you are? I mean, yeah, you can't really answer that.
Hard
truthfully.
to say. Yeah. If you're doing push-ups every day and you're kind of banged up, that might make your pecs too tight and you might feel like crap. So it depends. Again, that, you know, the answer is, and it's not a cop-out, is it depends. So what did you train today, Josh, yet? Did you work out? Training?
Yeah, I already did. Yes.
What did you do?
Twice today. So I did some. Okay, so this morning I did some circuits of. I'll put it in my story here in a little bit. It was a wheelbarrow carry.
Okay.
Or a wheelbarrow, like a farmer's walk, essentially, like that
Yep.
loaded wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
I'd go backwards and forward because I usually do it in the street, but there's so many people that could be home and on edge and stuff right now. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people might never really work from home anyways, but like I've noticed like more people are just sitting at home. I don't want to cause distractions and have like, you know,
so I
went forward and backward instead of going out in the street. And then after that, I would hit over to this dot drill thing where you go forward, back, grab a sledgehammer, do 2 hands, switching my stance, 2 each way, switching my stance each time.
While holding the sledgehammer?
Yeah, and I did the drill with the sledgehammer too. So I do like I did basically had a weighted vest on too. So I had a weighted vest, and like because I think like basically, to make a long story short here, is I have a tactical course coming out for like a certification through ISSA. Yep. Okay,
nice. And
a lot of it, you know, training under load and stuff. Like I just like that better. I feel like for me personally, a lot of times it's safer, and I don't say that to sound arrogant. I'm just that fast. Like I need to slow myself down, or bad stuff. Bad stuff can happen. And you know, so it's I think, you know, using the concept of why was a barbell initially invented? It initially was invented to, you know, train strength and to slow you down. You know, like if you're squatting, it's going to slow you down if you have weight on it. So this is purposely to slow me down. And you know, when I was doing this research for this course, I was amazed at like the amount of like the caloric expenditure and stuff of how much more happens under load. Like you think about like why do cops have to be strong? Why does military have to be strong? Well, the average, you know, Fort Worth PD guy is about 25 pounds of external load just walking around. Okay, SWAT team more like in the 60s. Okay, average warfighter in Afghanistan, 99 pounds of external gear.
It's crazy.
So, dude, the best, you know, muscle hypertrophy, you know, strength, and, you know, not having too high body fat, all those ways are, you know, ways to just automatically do better under load, but then actually training under load. So I just kind of fell in love with it too. If anything, the nice thing about not competing or anything is unless something's just idiotic, I want to train, you know, I'm not after like a total. So if I just like something better and it doesn't, you know, it's not idiotic, I just do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not training for a contest. I'm not training for a contest. Doesn't matter how much I bench press it. I got freedom. I've already done that thing where I was like Fred Hatfield and I used to say, we were like monks, like living a monk lifestyle, except not like in a monastery, more like a monk of iron. Like just everything is like exact of like, you do this, you do that, you know, you don't go off course, like, you know, whatever, squat days this day, you know, the world stops for that. So now that I'm not there, I'm enjoying the freedom.
Yeah, I love the freedom too. I mean, I've been very like free for a long time. So you did the carries, you did the jumps. Anything else you did this morning?
That was it. So then later today, I'm gonna do a circuit of Hindu squats and Hindu push-ups later today.
It's funny. So for me this morning, I did sleds and Hindu push-ups for 3 sets.
Okay.
And then I used 1 kettlebell. I did 5 kettlebell snatches, 5 kettlebell squats, you know, from the rack position, 5 windmills. Did that for 5 sets. And then I did the descending ladder, the Juarez Valley push-ups with the band. So 10 banded push-ups, 10 pull-aparts. And as I walked across my turf, I did dislocators to stretch the pecs and keep the shoulders mobile. So I went 10, 9, 8 down to 1. And then maybe later today, I might, you know, I have in my garage a pair of 70-pound kettlebells and a 53. I might just do like a 400-meter farmer walk and, you know, working on, I have a buddy that's helping me with some knee stuff. So I haven't been able to sprint for a long time, but if I could, you know, sprints would be twice, 3 days a week in my program.
I forgot to mention something. I also did a bunch of kicks in my bag this morning. So I did
good.
I would go 30 seconds on my right.
Yep.
15 seconds off, 30 seconds on the left. Did that, you know, it was like 32 times total, so 16 on each.
What, like a Muay Thai kick?
Yeah, exactly. So the left one, you know, the right one I'm doing pretty hard. The left one, I'm still kind of working more on the form. You know, it's awkward. So, you know, so obviously the volume's a lot higher, but it's not the same training effect because it's just not as hard. And I'd rather do it right and a little less hard and get something out of it. So
I think that stuff's so good too for just that is your joint mobility, right? When you're doing things like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and just moving is very it's very good for
around
the joints.
For 2 hours with like bands and, you know, and then doing nothing but bench press, squat, and deadlift. I'd rather just train this way and take care of a lot of that stuff and actually have, you know, functional benefits outside of the weight room. So, you know, it's interesting, like how you see some people now, they warm up their warm up takes longer than the workout.
Yeah.
And they're you know, and they think they're ready for this movement and stuff just because you can roll around on something and use a band to stretch you. That's not like really real life, you know. Like what I'll do is more just like, okay, the Muay Thai kicks start off at 50%, you know, next round 60, 70, and all of a sudden, you know, a few minutes I'm going 100%. And that's actually going to transfer over if I need it, you know, like if, I don't know, if like, you know, some crazy, you know, vagabond tried to come after my kids, you know, now I'm not to use my boxing. I can just use some kicks or knees.
Listen, I agree 100%. And my buddy Jim Steele, I remember seeing him training when he was at UPenn. He had these large wheelbarrows. I can't remember the name of the company that made it. They were huge. So I was doing a lot of the wheelbarrow walks, and I saw him training, and he was doing like heavy side raises, like kind of swinging them up, like almost like a high pull. And then he would do like 20 punches on the, I think you had that stand-up dummy. They call it like a bob.
Yeah. It's similar to that thing.
Yep. And he was just doing like for time. And he's like, sometimes, you know, I focus on the weights. Then a couple months I still lift, but I'm doing Muay Thai, getting that a little more, giving, you know, making that thing my focus. And I think as you get older, that's a smart way to train, to give your, you know, just if you're training, you know, I would say everything is training. Don't get so caught up in, you have to do it this way. You have to lift the weights first. Get back to doing some of that.
Well, it's a fountain of youth because most people are going the opposite way. They're going the wrong way. They're going like, you know, like, because you think about it, you're like 26 years old. You go to your nephew's birthday party. You go out there, you throw a football. It's no big deal, even though you haven't done it in a while, you know. But then all of a sudden, you keep training like, say for example, like a bodybuilder on machines. Like, you know, you have a machine bias. There's pumping up all the time. You think you're able to do that when you're like 40, you know, 35? Probably not. So most people are kind of going the opposite way. When they're older, they're naturally becoming more immobile if they don't do anything about it. What they're doing is they're expediting that process by, okay, all I do is like, machine curls, machine lateral raises, leg curls, and leave the gym and pump up. Where the reality is, if they want to combat the aging process, they need to be moving more.
Callie Hinsman saying, Jim Steele is the man. I think he has all his sport athletes do some form of martial arts. So I believe when he was at UPenn, he had like a special room. He'd hit a button and all the heavy bags would go out like on a hydraulic system. And just speaking of that, I remember I was training a group of football players when I was first opened up my Manasquan gym, and I would take them to the park to warm up. And by the way, the town complained before things were closed down, but we would farm or walk kettlebells. Yeah. And then we would get there and we would do like sprints. We'd play a game like ultimate football, like ultimate frisbee. But you know what I had the football guys do? What? Remember the, I know you remember the old school like sumo matches that the strongmen would do? Yeah. So I would have them do that. I would teach them kind of some hand fighting. And I remember one kid got like a bloody nose and he was in such shock. He like froze. And I was like, dude, this is the problem. You can squat heavy and deadlift heavy, but like you got scared. Your nose was barely bleeding. You got hit in the face and you froze. And that's why it doesn't matter. It's not so much matter the sport, but you must train the mental aspect. For sure. By doing, and sometimes training the mental aspect could be as simple as a circuit of Hindu squats and Hindu push-ups.
Well, it's funny we say that because we used to train. I train a lot of kids in the Metroflex, so it's not like it's like a strip mall, so it's not like busy traffic off a street, but you can like drive back off it. And there's a lot of other there's some, I don't know what goes on in some of those places, but some of them were like, apparently you get your car inspected like without a license, and just kind of seedy type of businesses and stuff. But there's a few like ones that I guess were more traditional. And there was we always wondered if people were getting pissed off because we'd use this way for doing strongman events. That was the area to do it. One day out there's a kid named Steve Coyne. I think he might have been on this earlier. And when he was like in 7th or 8th grade, this guy kind of slowed down like he's getting out of the car and like say, "What are you guys doing?" And I just remember he's just like, "Get the fuck out of my way!" And farmer's walking, just goes ape shit, like 12, 13 years old or whatever he was. And this guy just drove off. Didn't get out, and then like from then on, we never had a problem. So I don't know if that guy put the word out. He got cussed out by some crazy 13-year-old kid with farmer's walks or what.
Well, I remember you telling me also that like that outside grass area would be like guys would go out and like wrestle out there, or like somebody would fight out there.
Spar.
Yeah.
It was
the older gyms, and I mean Metroflex. That was not that long ago with that stuff happening, but I remember a lot of these like unique things happening as I was in my younger teenage years at gyms, like guys getting ready to fight in the gym, and my parents would leave me at the gym for like 4 hours. I never told them like the things I saw that were happening in these gyms.
Oh,
like,
dude.
Yeah, I never told them.
there was, I was like, me and my friend Adam, the guy, Joe Strong, we were talking about the other day, like, I'm at like at 12 years old, how many, we're 6th grade, how many old men at the Y had told us about like hookers they fell in love with in Vietnam and all of a sudden come back for. I'm like, dude, we're like 12. Like, do people still do that these days? Like the kind of things the older guys would tell us was like crazy.
I remember being at the YMCA before they the first YMCA weight room was like in the basement, had like a little radio.
Oh, hey, what's up, Big Jack?
Big Jack.
Best bouncer of all time.
Excellent. Big Jack. Big Jack will enjoy some of these stories then. So I remember I was 14 years old. I'd ride my bike to the YMCA. It was in the basement, all York equipment. And they had a radio with a cassette. And I would bring like an AC/DC or Metallica, and I'd ask them if I could play it. And they'd be like, the kid wants to play his music. And they'd be like, all right. So I remember like truck drivers were like they'd like curl, but they'd use like they'd have like working gloves on. They would curl like a plate on each side. And I remember this one guy was like, "Kid, come here," and he like held like his legs 6 inches off the ground, but he made me drop the dumbbells on his stomach. So I had like the York Globe dumbbells, the round heads. It would be like, drop the 20, drop it higher, kid, higher, then the 25, then the 35. And I remember like, oh my God, if my parents only knew that like these people were talking they were just crazy. And
They were crazy.
Any martial arts from when I was younger, it was called, they had shoot fighting back then, or no holds barred. Before the UFC called it MMA, they just called it NHB, or shoot fighting. And there were two places. And so when I went to the one place, it was called BAMA, Bayside Academy of Martial Arts.
Yeah.
The guy who owned it, he's the big ref for the UFC, Dan Maragliata. But I remember like training Muay Thai with this one guy. His name was Butch, and I was like, "What do you do, Butch?" And Butch is like, he's like, "I'm security for one of the guys in like Newark." So I guess he was like a like a drug king. He was like a drug kingpin in Newark. He's like, "I'm security for him."
Yeah.
Like, all right. And he used to. I remember guys would like, kick and hit the pads, and I was learning to kick. And Butch had me kicking him with like he didn't want to hold any pads. And I remember I was like doing the kicks to his like side of his thigh, and it was like killing my shin. I was like hitting his leg, hurting me. And I remember thinking to myself, how is this hurting me? It's not hurting him. What is this? And so, these early days stuff, man, people are getting we have a lot of international listeners right now. People get a kick out of this stuff, but I think like that stuff is missing from gyms. And also, people don't talk.
They're in garage gyms now and home gyms now where people congregate. It's still there. It's just, it's just not the same level. I mean, I'm not even saying it's a good thing, because some of this stuff's quite, as a criminal element. It's funny though. Yeah. Because like I remember at the YMCA there was this big black dude named Zeus. Well, I don't know if that wasn't his real name. We called him Zeus because he had the crazy eyes.
Yes.
And there's other guy that got out of prison. He's white on one forearm, power on the other. And we were like in 8th grade, like just like, like giggling, like what's going to happen next. And there was like this tension in the weight room, but like they both like knew if like something went down, both of them would probably be dead. Like they just seemed that badass. Like if something did go down, they both knew they were both in serious trouble. Like, I don't know who would have won it, but it was just like, it was like a crazy tension in that weight room. Well, and I remember one day that big black dude Zeus had like 455 on the bench. And he comes over to me and starts grunting at me to spot him, because it was only me and the white power guy in there. So he can ask that guy to spot him. So he starts pointing, grunting to go spot him on the bench. Yep. Didn't say thank you or nothing. Like 6 weeks pass. I was doing tricep extension. He comes over and he goes, "Man, that was like," he's like, "You use more weight than bodybuilders, and you're in high school." And like it was like, man, it was like so cool to earn like that rites of passage. Like Zeus like acknowledged me and said I lifted heavy. It was like, I don't know. It was just like the coolest thing to have him like actually like
when
know
you're
that
young,
I existed. Yeah.
Those, like Louis Simmons says, kids nowadays, they don't have heroes in weightlifting, but you and I, when we were young, our heroes were a lot of these guys that were in the gym. And one of the guys that trains at my gym, his brother-in-law was related to Big Jim Williams in Scranton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. And so my buddy grew up in Scranton, PA, and he told me this, that the custodian at the high school was like a big guy and used to like fight with Big Jim Williams, and the police couldn't stop them. So Big Jim and the custodian would like meet in the street, and they would just basically like duke it out until basically they could no longer go on, and then the ambulance would take one or both of them away. He said the cops wouldn't stop them. And so he said the custodian was like in his 50s, but when they'd be lifting in the high school weight room, he'd be like, what do you boys got on that bar? And let's say they had 455, he would just like walk up cold and like deadlift it for a couple reps. He said the guy would deadlift in like jeans, jeans and work boots. And, these stories of, I remember so many of them, like you're speaking of the big black guy. When I first got to the first commercial gym, I was so scared. And I also wanted to like earn some respect or befriend some guys. So you're talking about spotting. I saw this one big black guy was benching. I remember it was like 3 plates and a 5, maybe a 10. And I was like, "Oh, do you want to spot?" I'm like 135 pounds, maybe. Yeah. I'm working out, sweating. He's like, "Yeah, spot me, kid." So I'm spotting him, and he gets, I don't know how many reps. And as he's eking out the last one, I sweat, and it lands in his eye. And exactly. And he's like, and I'm like, "Oh, shit." I'm just going to help him rack it, and then I'm out. So after he finishes that rep, he was like, I rack it. I was like, good set. And then I just like walked away. I was so scared. He was going to destroy me. And then, you know, it was like little things. You know, one guy spotted me once. He saw me working hard, and I was going for the rep,